I'm Mara Caldwell, 26 years old. On a Tuesday that smelled like bleach and discount bread, I asked my dad for $50 for groceries, and he laughed, like hunger was a punchline. He told me to starve. My mother didn't correct him. My brother filmed it, grinning, like my humiliation was content. They thought I'd keep shrinking. They thought I'd keep apologizing for taking up oxygen in their house. They thought money was the only language I didn't speak. Instead, I signed my name exactly once on the back of a ticket, walked into a law office with a zipped tote bag, and became someone they could never touch. The next morning, I boarded my private jet. I left a letter on the kitchen table that revealed the $100 million jackpot they would never touch. The funny thing about winning the lottery is that the winning isn't loud. The commercials show confetti, champagne, people screaming into cameras. My moment happened under humming fluorescent lights at Quick Stop Mart, where the clerk had a chipped thumbnail and the air smelled like burnt coffee. "Do you want a bag?" she asked. "No," I said, because I'd trained myself to want nothing. Wanting was dangerous. Wanting got you laughed at. The ticket sat folded in my wallet behind an expired library card and a receipt for ramen cups. I'd scratched it in the bathroom at the diner where I worked weekends, using a dime a customer left behind. 3 matching symbols, then another row, then the kind of number your brain refuses to accept because it's too big to be real. $100 million. I didn't scream. I didn't faint. I stared until my eyes blurred. Then I washed my hands like the ticket might be contagious. That night, I slept with it taped inside a paperback novel on my nightstand. I didn't tell anyone. Not my coworkers who complained about tips. Not my one friend from high school who still texted me memes. And definitely not my family. Because my family had taught me a lesson early. If you bring something valuable into the house, they start measuring how much of it belongs to them. I lived in the converted laundry room at the back of my parents' place. The old washer hookups were capped and painted over, but the floor still sloped toward a drain. In winter, the room sweated with cold. In summer, it baked. The door didn't latch properly, which meant my mother could push it open whenever she wanted, the way you open a cabinet you own. My parents told people I was between opportunities, like I was a temporary inconvenience, like I'd just wandered in from the street and set up camp. The truth was I'd been paying rent since I was 19. I'd been paying in cash because my dad said paper trails were how the government got you. I'd been paying in groceries. Cart after cart I swiped on my debit card, while my parents posted inspirational quotes about family on Facebook. My brother Liam had his own room with a king bed and a gaming setup that pulsed neon through the cracks under his door. He was 23 and building a brand. My father called his streaming work, even though Liam slept until noon and screamed at strangers online. When Liam needed a new microphone, my dad found the money. When I needed tires, my dad told me to walk. I'd been careful after I scratched that ticket. I took a photo of it, front and back. I wrote down the serial number in 3 places. I sealed it in a clear plastic sleeve. I went to the public library and used their computer to read everything I could about claiming a jackpot, trusts, anonymity laws, tax implications, what not to do. I didn't know much about law, but I knew enough about predators to recognize patterns. And my family was a pack. Still, the day after I confirmed the prize number online, hunger hit me like a wave. Not just the physical kind, the deeper kind that comes from realizing you've been surviving in a house that feeds on you. You start wanting proof. You start wanting to know, for certain, what they are. So I tested them. It wasn't a noble experiment. It wasn't therapy. It was me, a girl with an uncashed future in her pocket, standing in the kitchen pretending I was still powerless just to see what they'd do. My mother was at the counter slicing cucumbers for a salad she'd probably throw away. She was a woman who loved the performance of health, not the practice. My father sat at the table reading the sports page like he owned time. Liam leaned in the doorway, phone in hand, already recording. I cleared my throat. "Hey, I'm short this week. Could I borrow $50? Just for groceries?" My father didn't even look up. He laughed, a single hard bark. $50. For you. "I'll pay you back Friday," I said, keeping my voice even, like glass. He finally looked at me, eyes flat and amused. How about you learn not to waste money? You always have some sob story. My mother didn't turn around. She kept slicing cucumbers into perfect, useless circles. I'm not wasting money, I said. I need help. That's when Liam stepped forward, camera aimed like a weapon. Tell them about your little, need help face, he said, smiling. Do it again. My father leaned back in his chair, pleased. Here's some help, he said. Starve. Might do you good. The air went quiet in that way. It does right before something breaks. I felt the words land in my chest like a stone. Not because they surprised me, because they confirmed what I'd been refusing to name. I looked at my mother. Are you okay with that? She shrugged without meeting my eyes. Your father's right. You're always dramatic, Mara. Dramatic. A word they use like a leash. Like a diagnosis. Like it explained why they didn't have to treat me like a human being. I nodded once. I let my face go blank. I didn't cry. Crying was what they wanted. Crying gave them a story about how sensitive I was, how difficult I was, how I needed to toughen up. Okay, I said quietly. Got it. Then I walked back to the laundry room and shut the door that didn't latch. Inside, I sat on my narrow bed and opened my paperback. I peeled the tape off the inside cover and pulled out the ticket. My hands didn't shake. That's what scared me. I'd crossed the line from hurt to clarity. I called the number for the state lottery office from the library's website, not the one printed on the ticket, because scams were a thing. I scheduled an appointment for the next morning. Then I opened my laptop and drafted an email to a law firm I'd been researching for weeks. Estate planning, trusts, lottery claim experience. Subject line: immediate consultation request. Confidential. In the same session, I opened a new bank account online, in my name only at a national bank, not the local credit union my father had access to through helping me set it up when I was 16. I ordered a P.O. box. I froze my credit. I set up a new phone plan on an eSIM so my family wouldn't see a new number pop up on the shared account. Paperwork was my oxygen. Receipts were my armor. At 2:13 a.m., I printed a one-page document on the little printer I kept hidden under my bed. A notice to vacate, addressed to myself, dated for 2 weeks from now. My father had threatened to kick me out every time I argued. Fine. Let him think he'd done it. At 6 a.m., I left for my diner shift like nothing had changed. I poured coffee. I refilled sugar caddies. I smiled at customers who didn't know my name. But my mind was elsewhere, running down checklists. By noon, I had a lawyer. By 3 p.m., I had a plan. By midnight, I had a trust name, a trustee, and a safety protocol that included security consultants my lawyer recommended. People who didn't laugh at hunger. People who understood what families do when they smell money. The next morning, while my father snored in front of the TV and my mother arranged her salad in a plastic container, I packed a single suitcase. Not because I didn't have things, because I didn't want things that had learned to belong to them. I left behind the room that sloped toward the drain. I left behind the story they'd written for me. And I left behind a letter on the kitchen table, folded into thirds, addressed simply, for the family who taught me what love isn't. I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of my bed in the laundry room and watched the thin strip of hallway light slide under the door like a warning. My suitcase was zipped and upright. My phone was wiped clean of family numbers, except one burner contact labeled "Do Not Answer," which was my own old number on the family plan. If they called that, I'd know the panic had begun. At 5:42 a.m., I left the house with the kind of quiet you only learn by living with people who weaponize noise. The back door groaned if you pulled it wrong, so I lifted the latch first. I stepped into the cold and didn't look back. My lawyer's name was Sonia Patel. She didn't speak in soothing tones. She spoke in procedures. When I met her, the first thing she did was place a blank legal pad between us and write, "Who knows?" "No one," I said. She looked up. "Not a single person?" I thought of Liam's camera, of my father's laugh, of my mother slicing cucumbers like my hunger was background music. "Not one." "Good," Sonia said, like it was a diagnosis and a cure at once. "Then we keep it that way until we're done building the cage." Cage. She said it like she'd seen this before. She'd booked a conference room near the lottery office instead of meeting at her firm. Privacy. Neutral territory. No familiar receptionist to gossip. No glass wall with my face visible from the sidewalk. Sonia's little folder told me. Inside were documents with my name printed in sharp black letters. Trust formation paperwork, a confidentiality agreement, instructions for the lottery claim process, and a checklist titled Security Protocol. I read every line twice. This trust becomes the claimant, Sonia said. Not you. The funds land in a trust-controlled account. We set up a separate living account for you, funded by structured transfers. We keep your personal identity off anything public-facing, as much as your state allows. I don't want them to find me, I said. Sonia's pen paused. Your family? Yes. She nodded once, no surprise. Then we build layers. PO box, new residence in an LLC, new phone number, no forwarding address, and you keep your mouth shut, even when you want to scream. I almost smiled. I'm good at shutting up. You shouldn't have had to be, she replied. And then she went right back to logistics, because pity doesn't protect you. Paperwork does. The lottery office was beige and designed to feel harmless, like a dental clinic. The walls had framed photos of oversized checks and grinning winners who didn't yet know what would happen to them after the cameras stopped rolling. A security guard checked my ID. Another checked my bag. I'd dressed like I was going to a job interview at a place that paid $9 an hour. No jewelry, no makeup, hair pulled back. I was still Mara the Invisible. But I had the ticket. I watched the clerk behind bulletproof glass scan it. The machine beeped once. Her eyebrows lifted, just a fraction, the way professionals react when they see an amount that could change their building. Congratulations, she said, voice suddenly careful. You'll need to speak with claims. I didn't congratulate myself. I didn't let my face change. I just nodded like I'd won a raffle basket. Claims took an hour. Sign here, initial there, verify serial number, verify identity, verify witness. My attorney watched everything like a hawk. The check wouldn't be a literal check, not at this level. But the word was still used like theater. When it was over, Sonia walked me back out to the parking lot. You did fine, she said. Now comes the part people ruin. What part? Celebrating out loud. I climbed into the black car she'd arranged for me, the kind with tinted windows that made the outside world look less threatening. As we drove, my phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Bring home eggs, the good ones. I stared at the screen for a long moment. The trust account was being funded in phases. By the end of the week, I would have access to more money than my family had ever seen. And she wanted eggs. A normal daughter might have felt a sting of guilt. A normal daughter might have thought, maybe they'll be different if I help them. But I had proof now. Not the lottery. The grocery request. The laugh. The word dramatic. The shrug. I didn't respond. That silence was my first boundary. The private jet wasn't mine. Not technically. Sonia's firm had connections. They called it executive transport, like it wasn't a lifeboat. I didn't care what it was called. I cared that it got me away without a suitcase bouncing on a Greyhound floor, and my father tracking my location through some shared app he'd insisted we all use, for safety. As the jet lifted off, I looked down at the patchwork of streets and rooftops and felt something unclench in me. Not joy, release. Sonia had asked me earlier, are you sure you want to leave a letter? I want them to know why, I said. Knowing why won't make them repent, she warned. I don't want repentance, I told her. I want a scar. So I wrote it. Not emotional. Not pleading. A clean document, like a notice from a bank. I printed it in crisp black ink and signed it with the same steady hand I used on the trust paperwork. The letter said, Dad, you told me to starve when I asked for $50 for groceries on Tuesday, January 14th at approximately 7:18 p.m. Liam recorded it. Mom, you called me dramatic while you watched. I have treated this house like a temporary punishment long enough. I won the state jackpot. $100 million. I claimed it through a trust. You will not be beneficiaries. You will not be contacted. If you attempt to find me or interfere with my employment, housing, or banking, You will be met with legal consequences. This is not revenge. This is consequences. I hope the memory of that laugh keeps you warm. Then the trap part, the part Sonia called insurance. Because I didn't only leave the letter, I left evidence. In the top drawer of the kitchen junk cabinet, beneath the rubber bands and dead batteries, I placed a small envelope. Inside was a copy of a notarized statement, the date and time of my grocery request, witnessed by my coworker Jenna, who'd been sitting in my car when I'd cried afterward. It included screenshots of the text messages my father had sent me over the years, threats to throw me out, demands for rent, insults about my weight, accusations that I was useless. And taped to the back was a simple note: try to tell people I'm lying. I kept receipts. I knew how my family operated. If I vanished without a story, they'd write one. They'd tell the neighborhood I'd joined a cult. They'd tell my cousins I'd stolen money. They'd call the police with trembling voices and practiced grief. So I preempted them with documentation, a paper trail that could outlive their performance. While I was in the air, Sonia filed a formal change of address request for my legal correspondence to the P.O. box. She also filed a notice with the local police department that I was not a missing person, not in danger, and that any report from my family would be false and potentially malicious. It wasn't a restraining order yet. It was a flag. A calm warning shot. When we landed, my new phone number activated. My old phone went into a locked safe deposit box. My new apartment keys were in my purse. Temporary place, corporate rental, no name on the mailbox. That evening, I sat at a clean kitchen table in a city that didn't know me and opened my laptop. I had one more thing to do before they discovered the letter. Because my father didn't just laugh at hunger. He'd been taking money from me for years, calling it rent, calling it family contribution, calling it what he wanted. Always in cash, always unrecorded. Except I'd started recording it. Not because I planned to sue him, because I'd learned, the hard way, that love without proof becomes a weapon. I opened a folder labeled Receipts and stared at the spreadsheet inside, dates, amounts, and photos of every envelope I'd handed him with his handwriting on it. Some said rent. Some said utilities. Some said you owe me. I had a total, and I had a target. I wasn't just going to disappear. I was going to make sure their cruelty followed them into every conversation they tried to control. The first voicemail hit at 7:03 a.m. It wasn't on my new number. It was on the burner contact I'd labeled Do Not Answer, which forwarded transcriptions to an encrypted inbox Sonia set up for me. I was sitting at my new kitchen table, sipping tea I didn't have to ration, when the transcript arrived. Mara. Pick up. Where are you? Who do you think you are? My father's voice, turned into text, looked smaller than it sounded. That made me feel something dangerous. Power. Then came my mother. Please call me. This isn't funny. If you're trying to punish us, it's working. We're worried sick. And then Liam. Bro, you're gonna make me look bad. I told people you were just being dramatic. Call me so I can update them. That one made me laugh. Once, quietly. Not because it was funny, because it was honest. The truth always leaks out around the edges with people like him. I forwarded everything to Sonia. Her reply came back in 2 lines. Do not respond. We are documenting. A week earlier, I would have clung to the word worried like it meant love. But my mother's worry was always about how things reflected on her. My father's anger was always about losing control. Liam's panic was always about losing the narrative. They didn't miss me. They missed their access. I opened my laptop and pulled up the spreadsheet I'd built over 3 years. I didn't start it because I expected to win the lottery. I started it because I kept feeling like I was losing my mind. My dad would demand money, then deny he'd asked. He'd say I was behind, then refuse to name the amount. He'd tell my mother I wasn't contributing, while counting my cash in the garage like a petty king. So I started taking photos. Every envelope laid flat on my bed with the date and amount written in my own handwriting on a sticky note beside it. Every ATM receipt, every screenshot of a text that said, bring $200 home. Don't make me ask twice. I'd also started recording audio, but not secretly in the house. Sonia had warned me about consent laws. Instead, I recorded my own voice the moment after an exchange, describing what happened like an incident report. June 3, 8:22 p.m. Dad demanded $300 for utilities. He said if I didn't pay, he'd change the locks. Liam laughed. Mom said nothing. It felt ridiculous at the time, like I was building a case file against my own life. Now, it looked like evidence. At 10:15 a.m., Sonia called. They're escalating, she said. How? I asked, but I already knew. There are only so many moves people like this have. Your father called your workplace, she said. He told the manager you stole money from him and you might be unstable. He's trying to get you fired so you'll crawl back. My stomach stayed calm. That surprised me. I'd expected fear. Instead, I felt the clean click of a lock. He can't do that, I said. He can try, Sonia replied. He also contacted the police to report you missing. I told you he would. You were right, she said. The officer on duty noted our prior notice and closed it as adult left voluntarily, but your father made a scene. We have the incident number. Good, I said. More paperwork. Sonia was quiet for a beat. Mara, you want to do something? I can hear it. I want to make sure they can't rewrite this, I said. Then we do it carefully. That afternoon, we met in Sonia's office for the first time. It was sleek and minimal, all glass and gray carpet, and it smelled like printer toner and expensive hand soap. She introduced me to a man named Declan who didn't smile and didn't offer coffee. He was a security consultant. The kind who asked questions that sounded simple but weren't. Do they know the state you're in? He asked. No. Do they have access to your accounts? No. Do they know your social security number? Yes, I said, and felt a flare of anger at my younger self for ever letting my parents handle important documents. Declan nodded. Then we assume attempted identity fraud. Freeze everything. Monitor everything. And we create a decoy trail. A decoy? I echoed. Declan slid a paper across the desk. It was a list. Public information that could be seeded into the world to lead them away from me. A fake job application. A rental inquiry in a different city. A mailing subscription in a name similar to mine. Sonia watched my face. It's legal, she said. It's not defamation. It's not impersonation. It's just misdirection. I thought of Liam's camera. Of my father's laugh. Of my mother's shrug. Do it, I said. Then Sonia pulled out another folder. Cease and desist. It was addressed to my father and copied to my mother and Liam. It was short, cold, and specific. Stop contacting my employer. Stop filing false reports. Stop attempting to access my financial identity. Stop harassing me through third parties. At the bottom, it referenced the incident number from the police call and included a sentence that made my throat tighten. Further conduct may result in a civil action for harassment, defamation, and intentional interference with employment. That's the leash, Sonia said. Not a lawsuit. Not yet. A boundary with teeth. Send it, I said. While she prepared it, I opened my phone and listened to the newest voicemail transcript. It was my mother, this time in her real voice, not her performance voice. Mara, honey, your father didn't mean it. He's under stress. We all are. We need to talk. People are asking questions. And please don't do anything you can't take back. People are asking questions. That was it. That was the heart of it. Not are you safe? Not are you eating? Not are you okay? Questions. Optics. Her social standing. I stared at the words and felt something settle in me like sediment at the bottom of a glass. Clear now. Unshakable. Sonia's assistant came in with the final letter for my signature. I read it. I signed it. My name looked different on paper in that office. It looked like it belonged to a woman with options. On the way out, Sonia asked, "Do you want to go public?" Not with the lottery, but with what they did? I pictured the neighborhood. The church ladies. The cousins who always believed my mother's version of events because it was prettier. I pictured my father standing in the driveway telling everyone I'd run off with a boyfriend, that I'd stolen from them, that I'd always been unstable. They'll smear me, I said. They already are. Sonia replied. She was right. Silence wasn't neutrality. Silence was a vacuum they could fill. That night, I opened my laptop and drafted a statement. Not a rant. Not tears. Just facts. Dates. Quotes. Screenshots. The police incident number. A note that I was safe. I left voluntarily, and I was pursuing legal protection from harassment. I didn't include the lottery. Not even a hint. The jackpot was my private exit, not the headline. But the cruelty? The cruelty was the headline. I scheduled the post for the next morning on a new social account under my legal name, with comments turned off and sharing enabled. Then I attached a PDF link hosted through Sonia's firm, redacted where it needed to be, solid where it mattered. Receipts, neatly stapled to the truth. At 2 a.m., I got one more voicemail from my father. You think you can disappear? You belong to this family. You hear me? You belong to us. I listened to that sentence again. Belong to us. And I knew exactly what I was going to do next. Because if my father wanted ownership so badly, I was going to show him what it felt like to lose an asset. At 6:58 a.m., I watched my scheduled post go live. I didn't refresh it like an addict. I didn't sit there waiting for hearts and comments. I'd turned comments off for a reason. This wasn't a debate. This was a record. The statement was 3 paragraphs. Calm as a weather report. 1. I was safe. 2. I left voluntarily. 3. I had retained counsel due to harassment and false reports. Then came the link. A PDF titled Chronology and Supporting Documentation. Redacted addresses, redacted account numbers, unredacted dates, unredacted quotes. Screenshots of texts from my father demanding cash. A photo of my handwritten log. The police incident number. A copy of the cease and desist. In the PDF, I included one line from my father in big plain font. Starve might do you good. May. No embellishment, no adjectives. Just his words, exactly as he said them. Because people can forgive a sob story. They don't forgive a direct quote. By 7:20 a.m., my burner inbox started filling again. The first new voicemail transcript from my father was almost funny in its speed. Take that down. You're making me look like a monster. At 7:24 a.m., my Aunt Denise texted the burner number, somehow, because families like mine treat privacy like a challenge. What is wrong with you? You air out family business online? Call your mother. At 7:31 a.m., my cousin Mariah messaged the new social account directly. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Are you okay? Do you need a place to stay? That one, I stared at. Not because I wanted to run into someone's guest room. Because it confirmed the entire point. They didn't know. They'd believed my parents' version because it had always been the only one available. My family had lived off controlling the narrative the way some people live off credit cards. Always borrowing against a future they couldn't pay for. I forwarded everything to Sonia. Her response was immediate. Good. Keep documenting. Do not engage. Declan, the security consultant, had warned me about the next step. When you take away someone's story, he'd said, they'll try to take away your identity. At 9:12 a.m., my credit monitoring app pinged. Attempted new credit inquiry. Retail card. At 9:14 a.m., another. Attempted new cell phone line inquiry. At 9:18 a.m., a third. Attempted address change request with the DMV. I didn't panic. I'd frozen my credit already. I'd set alerts. I'd done the boring steps that save you later. I took screenshots. I emailed them to Sonia. Then I made coffee and sat down like I was clocking in. Because now we weren't dealing with a family fight. We were dealing with fraud. Sonia called at 10:03 a.m. Your father tried to open a line of credit in your name, she said, voice clipped. We have it. The merchant gave us the IP location tied to the attempt. His house, I said. Yes, she confirmed. Now we have more than cruelty. We have a pattern of criminal behavior. What's next? I asked. We do exactly what you wanted, she said. We make sure they can't rewrite reality, and we make sure consequences aren't optional. We met that afternoon. Sonia laid out 3 paths like a surgeon. Path 1. Restraining order for harassment, plus protective order language. Clean, fast, focused on safety. Path 2. Civil suit for interference with employment and defamation because he'd called my manager with claims I was unstable and stealing. Harder, slower, public. Path 3. Criminal complaint for identity fraud attempts with supporting evidence. You can do one, two, or all, Sonia said, but the more you do, the more visible you become. I thought about the voicemail. You belong to us. I thought about how he'd tried to yank my life back by the throat the second I stepped out of his reach. All, I said. Sonia didn't flinch. Then we do it methodically. She slid another document across the table. It wasn't a lawsuit. It was a demand letter. It itemized what I'd paid my father over the years. Rent, utilities, fees, emergency cash, grocery runs that were family. But only when I funded them. Sonia had taken my spreadsheet and cross-referenced it with ATM withdrawals and any bank statements I still had. Where there were gaps, she labeled them clearly as estimates and marked them separate from documented totals. The documented total alone made my chest go tight. 38,450美元. That was how much I could prove I'd handed over. Not counting groceries, not counting gas, not counting the invisible cost of existing in a house where love was billed weekly. Why ask for it back? I said, even though I knew. I needed to hear it out loud. Because it forces a response, Sonia said. He can ignore a cease and desist. He can shrug off a social post. But when you present a demand with numbers and documentation, you corner him into choosing a strategy. And whichever strategy he chooses, we learn. What if he pays? I asked. Sonia's mouth twitched. Then you get $38,450 back. But more importantly, you get an admission. I imagine my father writing a check. My father, who'd laughed at $50 for groceries, suddenly coughing up nearly 40 grand. He wouldn't pay. He'd explode. And explosions create debris. Debris is evidence. At 6 p.m., Sonia sent the demand letter by certified mail and email. She copied my mother and Liam on the email version because there was no reason to let them hide behind plausible deniability. At 6:17 p.m., my new social account received a message from Liam. You're really doing this? Over a joke? You're gonna ruin Dad. You're gonna ruin all of us. Over a joke. Starve. Might do you good. I took a screenshot and saved it to the case folder. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I replied. One sentence. It wasn't a joke. You recorded it because you thought it was funny. Then I blocked him. At 7:04 p.m., the burner inbox got a voicemail transcript from my mother. Mara, please. Your father is having chest pain. He's under so much stress. This is too much. If you have any compassion at all, you'll stop. Please, think of the family. I stared at the word compassion and remembered every time I'd been told to have it for them, like it was a tax only I paid. When I was 19 and my dad took my entire paycheck for the mortgage. When I was 21 and my mom cried because she needed a little help, then bought herself a handbag. When I was 24 and Liam borrowed my car and returned it with a dent and a shrug. Compassion had been my leash. I forwarded the voicemail to Sonia. She replied with one line. Emotional manipulation. Documented. At 9:30 p.m., my father's certified mail tracking updated, delivered. At 9:41 p.m., the burner phone rang. I didn't answer, but I listened to the voicemail transcription as it came through live, line by line. You ungrateful little. You think you're smarter than me? You think paperwork scares me? I made you. I can break you. And if you don't come back right now, I swear to God I'll tell everyone what you really are. There it was. The threat. The pivot. The promise to invent a story. And the thing is, I didn't need to wonder anymore what he would do. He'd told me. So I opened my laptop, created a new folder titled Public Release, and dragged in the next set of receipts Sonia and I had prepared. The employer call log, the credit inquiry alerts, the false missing person report details. If he wanted to tell everyone what I really was, I was ready to show everyone what he really did. Not with rage. With timestamps. The morning I released the second packet of receipts, I did it the same way I did everything now. Quietly, cleanly, and with a backup. I sat at my kitchen table in my temporary corporate rental. sunlight spilling across a counter that belonged to no one but me. I had a mug of coffee, my laptop open, and Sonia on speaker. "You're sure?" she asked. "I've been sure since he told me to starve," I said. "Then we published the addendum," she replied. "No mention of money, no mention of your location, only the pattern of behavior." The addendum was shorter than the first PDF because it didn't need to be long. It only needed to be undeniable. Page 1. A screenshot of the credit monitoring alerts with timestamps. Page 2. A letter from my former manager at the diner, stating my father called the restaurant on January 16th at 10:11 a.m., claiming I had stolen from him and was unstable, and asking whether they knew where I'd gone. She included the exact wording because she was tired of men using women's reputations as leverage. Page 3. The police incident number from the false missing person report, with the note that I had already informed police I left voluntarily. Page 4. My father's voicemail transcript. "I made you. I can break you." I posted it under the same calm caption. Documentation update. "I am safe. I left voluntarily. Any further harassment is being handled through counsel." Then I closed my laptop, because at this point, the public part didn't require my attention. The legal part did. 2 hours later, Sonia texted me one word. Filed. She'd filed for a restraining order. She'd also submitted the identity fraud attempt evidence to the appropriate agency, with the IP information and delivery confirmation from the demand letter. She framed it the way it needed to be framed. Not a family squabble, but a pattern of coercion escalating into fraud. By noon, the first calls came from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. I didn't answer. Sonia advised me not to. Every message was a potential hook, an emotional fishing line tossed out to see if I'd bite. But I read the texts, because reading is safer than talking. "Aunt Denise, your mother is hysterical. How could you do this to her? Cousin Mariah. I didn't know. I believe you. I'm sorry. Uncle Frank. Family sticks together. You don't humiliate people like this." And then, a message from my mother that didn't go to the burner. It went to the new social account, from an account she made that morning, with a profile photo from a decade ago when we all still pretended. "Please, come home. We can talk about the money." I stared at that line until my eyes went dry. There it was. Not the apology, not the remorse, not the love. The money. My chest went cold in a familiar way, like stepping into a room you used to fear, except I wasn't afraid anymore. I was just done. Sonia called me at 3:40 p.m. "They mentioned money," she said. "Yes. Did you ever tell them about the lottery in the letter?" she asked. "No. The letter said I won, claimed through a trust, and they'd never touch it. No details. No proof." "Then someone may have guessed. Or your father is spinning it," Sonia said. "He's likely telling people you stole family money, so they'll pressure you." "Let him," I said. She paused. "Mara, the restraining order hearing is scheduled for next week. If he violates the cease and desist again before then, we can use it." "He will," I said. "Because people like my father can't help themselves. They don't stop. They escalate until they hit a wall." He hit the wall that night. At 8:12 p.m., my building security called my cell. "Miss Caldwell," the guard said, voice careful. "There's a man in the lobby asking for you. He says he's your father." My skin didn't prickle. It didn't burn. It just went still. "Do not let him up," I said. "I have counsel. He has been instructed not to contact me." "We asked him to leave," the guard said. "He's refusing. He's getting loud." "Call the police," I said. "I'll email you the notice." I sent the cease and desist to building security and attached Sonia's letterhead contact information. Then I sat on the couch and waited for the inevitable, the voicemail transcript. It came 20 minutes later, frantic and furious. "Open the door. You can't hide from me. You owe me. You owe your mother. You owe this family." He didn't say my name once. Not like a father speaking to a daughter. Like a landlord shouting at a tenant. By 9:05 p.m., the police report number arrived in my email. Trespassing. Removed from premises. Advised not to return. Sonia responded with a simple, "Excellent." The hearing the following week wasn't dramatic in the way people think court is dramatic. There was no pounding gavel, no gasps, just fluorescent lights, tired clerks, and a judge who'd seen every flavor of manipulation. My father showed up in a wrinkled polo and righteous indignation, like anger was a valid argument. My mother cried on cue. Liam sat behind them, eyes darting, fingers restless, as if he wished he could live stream the moment. Sonia didn't let them perform. Did you contact her employer? Sonia asked, holding the manager's letter. My father scoffed. I was worried. Did you attempt to open credit in her name? Sonia asked, holding the inquiry screenshots. My father's face tightened. That's not what happened. Did you show up at her building after being instructed not to contact her? Sonia asked, sliding the police report across. My father looked at the judge then, finally, like maybe authority would be on his side. The judge wasn't impressed. The restraining order was granted. Limited contact through counsel only. No approaching my residence, no contacting my employer, no third-party harassment. The judge also warned him, explicitly, that further identity-related attempts could carry criminal consequences. My mother's tears stopped the moment the ruling landed. She blinked like someone turned off the faucet. Liam stared at the floor, jaw clenched, because this wasn't content anymore. This was permanent. Outside the courthouse, my father hissed, "You think you won?" Sonia stepped between us. "Any contact goes through me," she said. "Walk away." For the first time in my life, my father walked away from me without getting what he wanted. That was my real jackpot. 6 months later, I didn't live in the corporate rental anymore. I lived in a house owned by an LLC, with cameras that didn't blink, in a neighborhood where no one knew my childhood nickname, my old shame, or my family stories. I didn't flash my money. I didn't post vacations. I didn't buy revenge toys. I funded safety. I paid off my student loans. I took a certification course and switched careers. I donated quietly to a local food pantry because I never forgot what it felt like to be laughed at for needing groceries. And once a month, I opened a folder on my laptop labeled Receipt. Not because I needed to look at it, but because I wanted to remember the lesson. Cruelty isn't a misunderstanding. It's a choice. As for them, my father stopped streaming his anger into the neighborhood because the neighborhood stopped listening. People don't like looking at receipts that prove they cheered for the wrong person. My mother told anyone who would listen that I'd been brainwashed by lawyers. Liam tried to pivot into motivational content about family betrayal, but his views cratered when people realized he'd filmed my hunger like a joke. They never touched my money. They never found my address. They never got to pull me back into their gravity. And I never went home. Not out of spite. Out of survival. The last thing I ever gave them was the truth, stapled neatly to timestamps, delivered like a final notice. Then I vanished forever. Not as their daughter, not as their scapegoat, but as a woman who finally belonged to herself.